All right, so I got this kind of lo-fi guitar pluck sound here. This is what it sounds like. A little lower. And some context. Right, it kind of fits that lo-fi vibe here. Almost, I say guitar pluck, but it's sort of in the realm of like a marimba or vibraphone. So let's take a look at the patch. The 3 oscillators right over here, I've chosen just sort of arbitrary, wavetables, but I was doing some experimenting. I like the sound of these the best, but you can choose whichever ones you feel like work for you. And I'm pitching them all differently. This is our normal oscillator. This one's down an octave. This one's up 2 octaves. And the thing to note here is that I'm taking both the wavetable position and intensity of these first 2 oscillators and modulating it via envelope 2. Oh, there we go. This is sort of how we start to get that pluck sound. We're starting with more high frequencies, and then we're going down to less. The intensity slider or intensity knob here is really just filtering out the top end, very much like a low-pass filter, but I think it's a little less steep. So, we're going from high frequencies to less, and then this one is all the high frequencies down to basically none of them. And I'm doing that just because this is in the lower octave, and I just wanted to get the high frequencies out of the way for these other 2 to sort of shine through. And this is something I do a lot too. I'm modulating the pitch of these oscillators sort of in a random way. This is the random amount, so you can assign this to anything you want, and then you just sort of pick a range, and it'll go from here to there in not any predictable way. You can also do it via velocity, which is something I also like to do in real life. If you pluck a string, you hit it harder. The pitch kind of goes up a little bit at first and comes back down. That's sort of the idea here. I'm just doing it a little randomly though. And then we come to the modulation oscillator, and you don't have to do it in this way, but essentially this is here to add some unstable grit into the sound. You can kind of think about phase distortion, which is really kind of what this is, as a way to add grit in harmonics. You can get some sort of bell sounds doing this. It's just taking the oscillator and the wavetable, essentially copying it over and adjusting the time and the phase of it to cancel each other out in a way that gives you a little bit more of a gritty sound from what's left over. So here, maybe you can hear it. So we're at 38. So you can hear the higher you push it, the more unstable, detuned sound you kind of get. That's a very lo-fi thing. If you think of a really old kind of detuned piano, that's the deal. This could get pushed harder. You could even modulate this via velocity or in a random way, but I thought this was a satisfactory amount. I like to add a little noise. This is basically inaudible, but it just sort of fills in the gaps. I don't think this is going to come through in YouTube at all. Yeah, not really, but you can play with this, and it just fills in the gaps between the harmonics. I could even push this a little harder, but this is something I really do like to do a lot. Always a fan of feedback, right? It just thickens up the signal, feeds it back into itself a little bit. You can play with this amount as well. And then coming up to the filters, my low pass is going, where are we? I'm really just using this more for the resonance, right? We're just like, we're coming from over here, starting low, going higher. This is a little bit arbitrary, but I was here for the resonance. And then the low pass 4 is really what makes the difference. Right, we're starting up here and boom, really quick, slamming it down. This is the pluck, and then the relationship of the resonance here. To me, there's sort of a bit of a sweet spot that just gives you the right kind of tone on that click. It just brings that out a little more. So the combination of these two is really where the plucking guitar sound is. And then, let me see, nothing crazy. Got 4 voices spread out, a little bit of stereo, and then definitely note this. So this entire range is only 6 cents. And again, I'm not 100% sure if it's either, I'd imagine it's between the 4 voices I have, there's a total of 6 cents, right? 1 cent is 1/100th of a semitone. The difference in pitch between them, not that each one is spaced out and they're 6 cents apart. I'm pretty sure that is how this works, but I didn't want to do it too extreme. The default here is 1, I believe. It'll usually start at 1, so this would give you a radically different sound, but I just made this whole thing a lot less so I could fine-tune it easier. Stereo, not too stereo, right? I don't like when something's so wide. I want to leave space in the mix. And then finally, this phaser is here to give it a little movement, a little more stereo width. Let's see if we can hear it. Yeah, so you can hear the phaser just when I'm holding the note on the sustain, it just is moving a little bit. That's great. And then I just have a little bit of reverb. It could even be dialed back a bit more, especially in the context of a mix when you want things often to share reverbs. But I thought this was tasteful. It helps it stand on its own a little better. And then nothing happening over here. So that's pretty much it. So have fun. Oh, the one thing I will say is that these sliders right here, this velocity is how hard you hit it, how much does it affect the envelope. I like to leave it a little low just because my keyboard is not sensitive enough to really pick up the difference between a very soft note and like a soft note. It's pretty, it's not a very good one. But if you have a nice keyboard, I would turn up the velocity, and then the KTR is basically the filtering of how this works. So how affected it is at higher frequencies, at higher notes, do you have more high frequencies, and at lower notes, do you have less? So I just have sort of in the middle here, you can play with all these things and you should get the sound that you want. All right, so thanks for coming by.